Welcome students to the topic tongue and the hypoglossal nerve. The competencies for today's lecture is describe and demonstrate the morphology, nerve supply, embryological basis of nerve supply, blood supply, lymphatic drainage and the action of extrinsic and intrinsic muscles. Learning objectives of today's lecture. At the end of the lecture, the student should be able to describe the tongue under following headings: external features, muscles, nerve supply, lymphatic drainage and applied aspect. At the end of the lecture, the student should be able to describe the development of the tongue and correlate its nerve supply to the development. And you should be able to specify the anatomical basis of the tongue tie and the bad prognosis of the cancer present in the when the cancer is seen in the posterior one-third part of the tongue. The tongue, it is a muscular organ situated in the floor of the mouth. It is a mobile muscular organ and it is associated with the various functions apart from the taste sensation. It is the organ of the taste sensation. Apart from this, other functions are it helps in the speech, chewing, deglutition, and it also helps in the cleansing of the mouth. So this tongue, it bulges upward from the floor of the mouth and its posterior part, it forms the anterior wall of the oropharynx. It is essentially a mass of the skeletal muscle which is covered by a mucous membrane. The muscle mass, it is separated into right and left halves by a presence of a middle fibrous septum. So this is the middle fibrous septum which divides this tongue into two parts, and this also represents the bilateral origin of the tongue embryologically. The external features are there are various parts to the tongue such as root. This is the root, the tip, and the part present in between the tip and the root is called as the body of the tongue. The body of the tongue which has a curved upper or the dorsal surface and an inferior surface which is also called as the ventral surface. So this dorsum of the tongue, it is convex in all directions. Root, it is attached to the palate. It is attached to this palate. It is also attached to the styloid process. It is attached to the mandible, whereas it is attached below to the hyoid bone. The tip, it is the free end of the tongue and it is present just behind the upper incisor tip. The dorsum of the tongue, this is the dorsum of the tongue which is having two parts again. Anterior two-third part, it is called as the oral or the papillary part which is present mainly in the oral cavity. The posterior part is the pharyngeal part which is the posterior one-third part present in the pharynx region. These two parts, they are separated by a sulcus which is called as sulcus terminalis which is in the form of inverted V, and these two limbs, they are directed downward and forward up to the palatoglossal fold. So this is the sulcus terminalis whose two limbs meet at a foramen called as the foramen cecum, and this represents the downward extension. From this point there occurs a diverticulum called as thyroid diverticulum which divides into two parts for the development of the thyroid gland. So that is the upward end of the thyroglossal duct. The anterior two-third part, which is also called as the papillary part because of the presence of the numerous amount of the papillae. The anterior two-third part, it is covered with the mucous membrane. This part, it is moist and red in color. Just in front of the two limbs of the sulcus terminalis, there are the presence of the circumvallate papillae. So these again arranged in the form of inverted letter V. They are the truncated conical projections of the lamina propria of the mucous membrane which are covered by the epithelium. So what is papillae? Papillae, these are nothing but the projections of lamina propria of mucous membrane, and these are covered by the epithelium. The epithelium of the tongue is stratified squamous non-keratinized type of epithelium. So circumvallate papillae are present in this region. Then there are the various filiform papillae which are the conical projections again. Foliate papillae are present and fungiform papillae are present in this anterior two-third part of the tongue. About the posterior one-third part or the pharyngeal part, there are presence of numerous amount of the lymphatic follicles, and this forms the lingual tonsil which is one of the component of the Walder's ring. So Walder's ring is the lymphatic ring which is anteriorly having the lingual tonsil, anterolaterally having the palatine tonsil, posterolaterally having the tubal tonsil, and posteriorly there is the presence of pharyngeal tonsil. So this is about the posterior 1/3 part of the tongue which forms the lingual tonsil. This is the palatine tonsil which is shown with the arrow. This is the palatoglossal fold and this is the palatopharyngeal fold. Now, the root or the base of the tongue is attached to the epiglottis, which is a leaf-shaped cartilage of the larynx, by 3 folds. This is the median glossoepiglottic fold and these two are the lateral glossoepiglottic fold. A depression is present on either side of this median glossoepiglottic fold and that is called as vallecula. So this is the vallecula present on either side of the median glossoepiglottic fold. So this is about the dorsal surface. We will see in detail about the papillae. The papillae, they are the projections of the lamina propria. See here, this is the stratified squamous non-keratinized type of epithelium. This is the lamina propria layer and its projection is nothing but the papillae. There are 4 types of the papillae: the circumvallate papillae, fungiform papillae, filiform papillae, and the foliate papillae, which is rudimentary in the human, whereas the filiform papillae, the foliate papillae, they are more prominent in the tongue of the rabbit. The circumvallate papillae, they are larger. They are the largest of all the papillae. The diameter is about 1 to 2 millimeter in diameter and number is 8 to 12 in number. These are the truncated conical projections which are surrounded by a circular sulcus. So see here, this is the circumvallate papillae which are 8 to 12 in number. These are the truncated conical shaped projections of the lamina propria which is surrounded by a circular sulcus. So this is the circular sulcus present over here. At the wall of the circumvallate papillae, there are the presence of the numerous amount of the test buds. So these are the test buds. The fungiform papillae, these are again having a conical head and a narrow base, and the test buds, they are present over here. The filiform papillae, they are the smallest papillae which are conical in nature with the pointed apex, and test buds, they are absent in the filiform papillae. Because of the presence of the filiform papillae, it gives velvety appearance to the tongue. So here these are the conical shaped pointed filiform papillae. This is the electron microscopic picture of a papillae, and fungiform papillae having a pin head and then narrow base. Again, this is the diagrammatic pictures showing the filiform conical shaped filiform papillae, fungiform papillae and the circumvallate papillae. These are the test areas on the tongue, present on the tongue. The areas of the sweat present at the tip, at the lateral margin, including the tip, is for the salty taste sensation. The sore, it is at the posterior aspect of this lateral margin of the anterior 2/3 part of the tongue, and to the in front of the sulcus, it is for the bitter sensation. The inferior or the ventral surface of the tongue, the structure seen are, it is divided into 2 parts by a presence of a midline septum that is called as the frenulum linguae. On either side of the frenulum linguae, prominence is seen, and this prominence is mainly formed because of this deep lingual vein. The deep lingual vein, to the medial aspect of which is the presence of the lingual artery and the lingual nerve. We can see in the living person the deep lingual vein, but we can't see the deep lingual artery and the lingual nerve in the living person. It is not visible on the ventral surface, but it is present medial to this vein. More laterally, again fibrous fold is present which is called as the plica fimbriata. At its posterior aspect, there is the opening of the submandibular duct, and numerous openings of the ducts of the sublingual gland can be seen on the ventral surface of the tongue. So this is the arrangement of the structure. This is the midline septum which is called as the frenulum linguae, lateral to which the prominent deep lingual vein is present, and to the medial aspect of it is the presence of the lingual artery and the lingual nerve. Now coming to the muscles of the tongue, each half of the tongue is having 4 intrinsic and 4 extrinsic muscles. The intrinsic muscles are superior longitudinal muscle, inferior longitudinal muscle, transverse muscle and the vertical muscle. Whereas the extrinsic muscles are palatoglossus muscle, styloglossus muscle, hyoglossus muscle, and genioglossus muscle. So the intrinsic muscles, they are present within the tongue itself. It alters the shape of the tongue, and the intrinsic muscles, they are confined to the tongue and they are not attached to the bone. They occupy the upper part of the tongue and alter its shape. The intrinsic muscles are arranged in the several planes. They run in three directions basically, in the longitudinal direction, in the transverse direction, and in the vertical direction. Because of this, it can alter the shape of the tongue, becoming more wide and flat, narrow and thick, or rolled up laterally to become a gutter shaped. The intrinsic muscles, it occupy the upper part of the tongue and are attached to the submucous fibrous layer and to the median fibrous septum. So these are the attachments of the intrinsic muscles. We will see the location in this diagram. The superior longitudinal muscle, it is located just beneath the mucous membrane. So on contraction of the superior longitudinal muscles, it shortens the tongue and makes the dorsum concave in nature. The inferior longitudinal muscle, it is close to the inferior surface of and it is present between the genioglossus and the hyoglossus muscle. Contraction of these inferior longitudinal muscles shorten the tongue and makes the dorsum convex. The third muscle is the transverse muscle, which is extending from the median septum up to the margin of the tongue. The contraction will lead to narrow and the elongated tongue. The vertical muscles, they occupy the peripheral aspect at the borders of the anterior part of the tongue, the contraction of which will make the tongue broader and flatter in nature. So these are the intrinsic muscles. The extrinsic muscles are palatoglossus, styloglossus, hyoglossus, and the genioglossus. The palatoglossus muscle, it is taking origin from the oral surface of the palatine aponeurosis, and the fibers, they are going to be inserted at the lateral side of the tongue. The contraction of this muscle, it will elevate the root of the tongue upward. It will elevate the root of the tongue is the palatoglossus muscle. The styloglossus muscle is taking origin from the tip and the anterior surface of the styloid process. The fibers will run downward and it will be inserted at the side of the tongue. The styloglossus muscle, it pulls the tongue upward and backward. Hyoglossus muscle taking origin from the greater cornu and the part of the body of the hyoid bone, and they are going to be inserted at the side of the tongue in between the genioglossus, in between the inferior oblique and the styloglossus muscle. So this muscle depresses the tongue and it makes the dorsum of the tongue convex. The genioglossus muscle, it is the key muscle of this region, or main bulk of the tongue is formed by the genioglossus muscle. So it is also called as the septive muscle of the tongue or the life-saving muscle of the tongue. The genioglossus muscle is taking origin from the upper genial tubercle and it is inserted. Upper fibers are inserted into the tip of the tongue, the middle fibers insert into the dorsum of the tongue, and the lower fibers insert into the hyoid bone. So these are the insertions of the genioglossus muscle. The main action is it protrudes the tongue. As it protrudes the tongue, so that it is also called as the life-saving muscle. Any paralysis of the genioglossus muscle will lead to the retraction of the tongue will fall backward and it will closes the air passage. It will obstruct the air passage, because of which there occurs choking as well as the death of the patient. So this is the reason why it is called as the life-saving muscle or the septic muscle of a tongue. So this is the genioglossus muscle taking origin from the upper genial tubercle. The anterior fibers insert into the tip, the middle fibers insert at the dorsum of the tongue, and the lower fibers, they will insert at the hyoid bone. Now movements of the tongue. The possible movements to the tongue, they are the protrusion of the tongue, which occurs by the contraction of the action of the genioglossus muscles on the both sides. As I have told you, on either side of this median septum, there are the 4 intrinsic and 4 extrinsic muscles are present. So both the muscles should act simultaneously to perform the action. The retraction is the backward pulling of the tongue, and it is mainly done by the styloglossus muscle, as its action is to pull the tongue upward and backward. Depression is caused by the hyoglossus muscles of the both sides. The elevation is performed by the palatoglossus muscle of both sides, and change in shape is mainly because of these intrinsic muscles. So this is a summary of the action of the muscle. The superior longitudinal muscle, it shortens the tongue and makes its dorsum concave. The inferior longitudinal muscle, it shortens the tongue and makes its dorsum convex. Transverse muscle makes the tongue narrow and elongated, and vertical muscle makes the tongue broad and flattened. The genioglossus, it protrudes the tongue, hyoglossus depresses the tongue, styloglossus retracts the tongue, and the palatoglossus elevates the tongue. Coming to the arterial supply of the tongue, the main artery of the tongue is the lingual artery, which is the branch of the external carotid artery. So, the lingual artery is having branches, dorsal lingual arteries, which is supplying to the inferior aspect of the tongue, and the deep lingual artery, which is going up to the tip of the tongue, and here it gets anastomosis with the fellow of the opposite side. Another arteries which supplies to the tongue, these are the tonsillar branch of the facial artery and ascending pharyngeal artery. So these are the three arteries. Main is by the lingual artery, tonsillar branch of the facial artery, and third is the ascending pharyngeal artery. The venous drainage, the veins follow along with the artery. At the tip of the tongue, there is the presence of the deep lingual vein, which starts from the tip of the tongue, then it runs beneath the mucous membrane. They are visible on the inferior surface of the tongue and present anterior to the lingual artery. Ultimately, at the posterior border of the hyoglossus muscle, it forms the lingual vein, and that lingual vein will drain either into the internal jugular vein or into the common facial vein. So ultimately, the venous drainage is into the internal jugular vein. About the lymphatic drainage, there are presence of the 4 vessels to the around the tongue for the lymphatic drainage. They are grouped into apical vessels, marginal vessels, the basal vessels, and the central vessels. These are the 4 vessels present around the tongue. The apical vessels, it drain the tip and the inferior aspect of the tip of the tongue into the submental groups of lymph node. The efferent from the submental groups of lymph node will goes to the submandibular, will get drained into the submandibular nodes, and it also drained into the jugulo-omohyoid groups of lymph nodes. The lateral margins of the tongue, they are drained into submandibular groups of lymph node, which further drains into the lower deep cervical and the jugulo-omohyoid groups of lymph node. The basal vessels, they drain the root of the tongue and get drained directly into the jugulo-digastric and the upper deep cervical groups of lymph node, whereas the central vessels, they drain bilaterally into the deep cervical groups of lymph node. Remember this diagram, this area shows that this is the bilateral innervations of the lymphatic vessel, bilateral draining of the lymphatic vessel. So this area includes the tip of the tongue, which get drained bilaterally into the submental groups of lymph node, the central portion of the tongue within half an inch on either side of the midline, which get drained into the jugulo-omohyoid and the jugulo-digastric groups of the lymph nodes, and root and the posterior 1/3 part of the tongue get drained bilaterally into the deep cervical groups and the jugulo-digastric and jugulo-omohyoid groups of lymph node. So this is the reason why the cancer present in the posterior 1/3 part of the tongue is having bad prognosis, because of the bilateral draining of the lymph node, as the involvement of the lymph nodes are more when the cancer is present in the posterior 1/3 part of the tongue. So chances of spreading is more. To summarize, the tip of the tongue drains bilaterally to the submental nodes. The anterior 2/3 part of the tongue drains to the submandibular nodes. This is the unilateral one. The posterior most part and the posterior 1/3 part of the tongue drain again bilaterally into the upper deep cervical nodes, including jugulo-digastric nodes. The whole limb finally drains to the jugulo-omohyoid nodes. These are known as lymph nodes of the tongue. About the nerve supply, The anterior two-third part of all the muscles of the tongue except palatoglossus muscle, they are supplied by the hypoglossal nerve, and the palatoglossus muscle is supplied by the vagoaccessory complex or the cranial root of accessory nerve through the pharyngeal plexus. Anterior two-third part of the tongue, the general sensation is by the lingual nerve and the taste sensation is carried by the chorda tympani nerve except circumvallate papillae. So the posterior general and the taste sensation from the posterior one-third part of the tongue, including the circumvallate papillae, they are carried by the glossopharyngeal nerve, and general and taste sensation from the posterior most part of the tongue is carried by the vagus nerve through internal laryngeal nerve. So out of 8 muscles, the 7 muscles they are supplied by the hypoglossal nerve. This is the motor supply except palatoglossus muscle which is supplied by the vagoaccessory complex. This is the diagram showing the nerves carrying the taste sensation. So from the anterior two-third part of the tongue except circumvallate papillae, the taste sensation they are carried by the chorda tympani nerve which is the branch of the facial nerve up to the geniculate ganglion. The posterior one-third part of the tongue along with the circumvallate papillae, the taste sensation they are carried by the glossopharyngeal nerve up to the inferior cervical ganglion. And from the posterior most part of the tongue, the taste sensation they are carried by the vagus nerve up to the inferior ganglion. From here, the fibers will traverses and getting relay in the nucleus tractus solitarius. This is present in the medulla oblongata. From here, it will form a solitariothalamic tract, which forms the part of the trigeminal lemniscus. These fibers again get relay in the posterior ventromedial nucleus of the thalamus, and finally this taste fibers, taste sensation, it will pass up to the postcentral gyrus of the cerebral cortex, which is the taste area present at the cerebral cortex. So this is the taste pathway. We will see in short about the development of the tongue. The anterior two-third part of the tongue is developed from the two lingual swellings which arises from the endodermal thickenings of the present at the floor of the first branchial arch. The posterior one-third part of the tongue, it is developed from cranial large part of the hypobronchial eminence, which is mainly as an endodermal thickening of the third arch, and that is called as the copula. The posterior most part is developed from the fourth arch, which is the caudal part of this hypobronchial eminence. So these are the pharyngeal arches. At the medial end of this endodermal arch, there is presence of the endodermal thickening. Two thickenings, such thickenings are present, which are called as the lingual swelling. At posterior part of which is the presence of the tuberculum impar. Soon this tubercular impar disappears. The second pharyngeal arch, it gets buried into the first arch, and this first two lingual swelling, it get overgrows to form the anterior two-third part of the tongue. The endodermal thickenings present at the medial end of the third and the fourth arch, it will forms the hypobronchial eminence. The upper cranial part is the larger part, which is called as copula, and the lower caudal part, it is the caudal part itself. It forms the posterior most part of the tongue, whereas posterior one-third part of the tongue, it is formed by the cranial part of the hypobronchial eminence. So this is the development. So at the 5 weeks, there are the presence of the pharyngeal arches first. This is second one, which get buried afterwards. This is the third one, and this is the fourth one. So at the age of the 5 months of the intrauterine life, there is the formation of the body of the tongue with the fusion of the two lingual swellings, and they are separated by a midline septum, which is called as the midline fibrous septum. Foramen cecum is present. The second arch, which is shown with the blue color, it gets buried in the first arch. This is the copula part, which develops the posterior one-third part of the tongue, and this yellowish is nothing but the posterior most part along with the epiglottis development. Clinical correlation of the tongue. The furring or the coating of the tongue, it mainly occurs due to the smoking, respiratory tract infection, fever, and the oral infection. Genioglossus, it is the safety muscle or the life-saving muscle of the tongue, as this is the only muscle of the tongue which protrudes it forward. So it is used for testing the integrity of the hypoglossal nerve also. The undersurface of the tongue and the bulbar conjunctiva, these are the most common site to look for the jaundice. Tongue tie, it is the condition where the frenulum extends too far towards the tip, causing the tongue tie, which is also called as the ankyloglossia. So this is the picture showing the tongue tie or the ankyloglossia. There are other embryological anomalies such as the microglossia, bifid tongue that are also present. The carcinoma of the tongue is very much common condition. It mainly involves the anterior 2/3 part of the tongue at its lateral margin. The affected side of the tongue, it is removed surgically along with the involvement of the lymph node, and that is called as the block dissection of the tongue. So 64% of the carcinoma, they are mainly present in the anterior 2/3 part of the tongue, whereas 16% they are present at the posterior 1/3 part, and so on. So if there is the involvement of the lateral margin of the tongue in the squamous cell carcinoma, suppose you have to remove the affected part along with the involvement of the submandibular groups of lymph node. But if it involves the posterior 1/3 part of the tongue, this is having a very bad prognosis, as there is the bilateral filtration of the lymphatic vessels at this region. The sorbitrate, it is taken sublingually for the immediate relief of from the angina pectoris. As this is the lipid soluble drug, it is getting absorbed fastly because of the rich blood supply of the tongue and bypassing the portal circulation. If the hypoglossal nerve of the right side is paralyzed, the tongue on the protrusion will deviate to the right side. Normal left genioglossus muscle will pull the base of the tongue to the left side, and apex will be get pushed to the affected or the paralyzed side. So this is the diagram showing paralysis of the right hypoglossal nerve, because of which the tip of the tongue, it is deviated towards the paralyzed side, whereas the base, it is pushed to the normal side because of the action of the normal genioglossus muscle. There is one phenomena called as the referred pain, whereas the pain is felt at some other distant place from the affected region. The referred pain is felt in the ear in the diseases of the posterior part of the tongue, as 9th and 10th nerves are common supply to both these regions. Referred pain of the cancer of the tongue is felt in the temporomandibular joint and temporal fossa. This is mainly because of the nerve carrying sensation from the anterior 2/3 part of the tongue. General sensation is the lingual nerve. So this lingual nerve, it is a branch of the mandibular nerve. If this referred to the auriculotemporal nerve, we will feel a pain at the temporomandibular joint and the temporal fossa. If the pain is referred to the inferior alveolar nerve, it will cause a pain at the lower tooth. About the next part of today's lecture, the hypoglossal nerve. Hypoglossal nerve, it is the 12th cranial nerve. It is paired one. It is having two functional components or two nuclear columns. These are the general somatic efferent column and general somatic afferent column. The hypoglossal nucleus, it is 2 cm long, lies in the floor of the fourth ventricle beneath the hypoglossal triangle. It is divided into a part for the genioglossus muscle and a part for rest of the muscles. So this is the diagram showing the location of the nucleus of the hypoglossal nerve. This is the hypoglossal nucleus which is present. This is the diagram showing the floor of the fourth ventricle, which is formed by upper part by the posterior surface of the pons, and the lower part of the floor is formed by the posterior surface of the medulla oblongata. There are two triangles present in this region. One is the hypoglossal triangle and another one is the vagal triangle. The hypoglossal nucleus, it is 2 cm long, present beneath to the hypoglossal triangle, which is present in the medulla oblongata. Again, this is the same picture. This is the cut section of the medulla oblongata, shown the hypoglossal nucleus. These are the corticonuclear fibers which represents the upper motor neuron, and these are the lower motor neuron fibers of the hypoglossal nerve. Its course and relation. After having the intraneural course, the nerve is attached to the anterolateral sulcus of the medulla oblongata, which is present between the pyramid and the olive. The nerve leaves the skull through the hypoglossal or the anterior condylar canal. After exiting through the skull, it is having extracranial course. The nerve first lies deep to the internal jugular vein, but soon inclines and reaches in front of it. It then descends between the internal jugular vein and internal carotid artery. At the lower border of the posterior belly of the digastric muscle, it curves forward and crosses the internal external carotid artery and the loop of the lingual artery. This is important one. It crosses the loop of the lingual artery. It passes deep to the posterior belly of the digastric muscle again to enter into the submandibular region. Then the nerve then continues forward on the hyoglossus muscle deep to the submandibular gland and enters the substance of the tongue. So here it passes forward on this hyoglossus muscle. So this hypoglossal nerve, it crosses the loop which is formed by the lingual artery. It then runs forward on the hyoglossus muscle and then it enters into the substance of the tongue to supply the intrinsic as well as the extrinsic muscles of the tongue, excluding palatoglossus muscle. About the branches and the distribution. The branches containing fibers of the hypoglossal nerve proper, they supply the extrinsic and the intrinsic muscles of the tongue except palatoglossus. Only extrinsic muscle palatoglossus, this is supplied by the cranial accessory nerve through the vagus and the pharyngeal plexus. The branches of the hypoglossal nerve containing fibers of the nerve C1, these are the meningeal branch, the descending branch or descendants hypoglossi. The branches are also given to the thyroid and the genioid muscles. So these are the branches and the distribution of the hypoglossal nerve. This is the diagram showing ansa cervicalis. So this is the descendants hypoglossi which are having communication to the hypoglossal nerve. So this is the ventral ramus of the first cervical nerve, ventral ramus of the second and ventral ramus of the third cervical nerve. And this ventral ramus of the first cervical nerve, it carry fibers through the hypoglossal nerve which will form the descendants hypoglossi root of the ansa cervicalis. Here along with this it will also supply to the genioid and the thyroid muscles. So these are the branches of the hypoglossal nerve. So the first cervical nerve distributed through the hypoglossal nerve, you have to remember this. The clinical anatomy of this hypoglossal nerve is, to test the hypoglossal nerve, you have to test actually the genioglossus muscle. So for that, you have to ask the patient to protrude the tongue. Normally the tongue is protruded straight forward. But if the nerve is paralyzed, the tongue deviates to the paralyzed side. Here in the diagram, there is the paralysis of the 12th cranial nerve on the right side. So the tip of the tongue, it is pushed towards the paralyzed side, that is right side of the tongue. So this is all about the tongue and the hypoglossal nerve. Thank you.